All right. Hi.
Hey everyone,
Happy Valentine's Day.
happy Valentine's.
So if you're watching this, you are probably watching on my new YouTube channel, Shamika Talks, where I share with you my family values. And one of the things that I value the most is my husband and our marriage. And we thought it would be fitting today to share with you guys um, about love on Valentine's Day.
That's right. And so, in the spirit of love, Valentine's Day, it's important to understand what that really means and how it um, really impacts your marriage. You think that it's easy and it's something that should be natural, but for some, it's really not, and it's something that you have to work on.
Right. And so we want to share a book that has impacted our marriage. Ultimately, God is he's been the most impactful in his spirit in our marriage, but there's resources that are out there to help in the department of love. And early on in our marriage, I just remember feeling like, does he love me? I don't know. And this is a candid conversation. We have not talked about what we're discussing at all. We are just winging it. We came in here, we pressed play, and we said, this is what we're going to talk about. So there's going to be raw moments. We'll probably mess up a couple times. I'll probably want to start over. He may want to start over, but we're not. We're going to just keep, this is take one, and this is it, right?
That's right.
And the kids, we have kids here, and they may call our names, and I might have to get up, or he may have to get up, and we're still not going to start over. Because if we keep doing that, we'll never do anything. And we need to go ahead and just do this, okay?
That's right.
So we're jumping right in, right?
Jumping right in. So let's just go back to what she said before. Like early on in our marriage, she felt like she wasn't being loved. For me, I felt like I was loving her to death, right? But the problem was, like she said, is that we were loving each other in the way that we wanted to be loved, which is all kind of outlined, like Shamika said, in this book, and it really helped us understand how to navigate each other's feelings and how to love each other the way that each of us needed to be loved.
And so think about it. If you, most of us, we express love in different ways. And so, in a lot of times, most of our love languages are based on how we were raised or just based on what we're used to. I know that, for me, I knew that my mom growing up loved me because she always bought me things. I mean, she took good care of us, and she got us what we needed. And I knew and felt loved from her because she did that. And so as I started to get older, in order for me to express love, I think naturally it came on me to love people by giving, buying things for them or giving them things. And not the only way. I mean, we learned love in so many other ways as well growing up, but that was just a form of love that I learned. And an aspect of love that was taught to us as children is when you love, you give. And that is true because God, he loved us and he gave, so that is a characteristic of love, but there are so many other aspects of love besides that one language of giving. And I think that's what we don't grow up learning. We don't grow up learning that there's multiple ways that you can express love to an individual. And if I ask you, what is love or how do you show love, everybody's answer would probably be completely different.
That's so true.
And so this book helped us to really narrow down love and the different ways that it's expressed, because it's a language and it helps you look at it as a language. So that's the significance of this book. And the book is called, what's it called?
The 5 love
Yep, the
languages.
5 love languages. I'm like, is that there? But the 5 love languages, and it breaks down 5 different love languages. Um, and um, and so yeah, and so those 5 love languages are
Quality time, words of affirmation, gifts, acts of service, and physical touch.
physical touch. Okay, so that's this book. So if you are married or you're in a relationship, go get this book. I'm telling you. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the book, or let's talk about.
I'd like to say one thing really quick. Shamika talked about like how her mom kind of helped molded her um, love language because that's what she saw and that's what she, part of what she gave, from a love perspective. I also want to talk about, you know, sometimes it can work the opposite way too. And what I mean by that is like as a child, I remember growing up and not really hearing a lot of affirming words or not hearing a lot of I love yous. So that became a source of what my love language was words of affirmation and just giving that out because I really didn't hear it a lot when I was younger. So that love language was just kind of something that was a void in my life and um, something that also needed to be filled.
Right. So my love language is not gifts. My love
Mm-hmm.
language is actually quality time.
Mm-hmm.
And so with quality time, um, it requires you to sit down and spend time with the person. No distractions, none of that. Just me and you, me and you. That's it. And so, in the beginning of our marriage, Sean worked a lot. He worked a lot. And at that time, I did not know what my love language was. I just felt like I never got to see him. And, we weren't able to spend time together like we were when we were dating. When we were dating, it was easy. It was easy because we were very intentional about spending time together, talking and communicating and all those things. And then you
Mm-hmm.
get married and then life happens, right? Things happen. And I think that's why they say, never stop dating your wife, never stop dating your husband, never stop dating when you get married because, whatever that process looked like that got you married is the process that you got to keep doing in order to stay married and happily married, at least I feel.
Yeah.
And so when we got married, Sean's schedule changed. It was just like, whoa. He started working nights and I never got to see him. We never got to talk. And I was feeling very empty and very unloved.
Mm-hmm.
And he gave me everything. He gave me everything, a beautiful home, car, took me off my job and allowed me to homeschool our kids, so I knew that he loved me. I just didn't feel the love because, we weren't spending that time together, but I couldn't explain it. It was just something I felt, and you kind of get confused when you feel like I have everything, like I shouldn't feel sad. I shouldn't be feeling lonely. I shouldn't be feeling depressed. I shouldn't be feeling any of these things because I have all the materialistic things and everything looks so beautiful and it's so wonderful and he's good to me. He's good to me. So why do I feel so unloved, which is what prompted us both because I would tell him that, like, I don't feel like you love me,
And I'm like, what do you mean I don't love you? Like, I bought you this and
And I'm like, I
I gave you
know
that.
you love me, but I don't feel like you love me.
Yeah.
And it was just like, and so then we were introduced to this book and challenged to read it and challenged to, there's an assessment in it and you don't have to have the book to take the assessment. You can actually Google the 5 love languages online. And today, I think if you're spending time together with your spouse, maybe it would be something fun that you can do together before the night is over is to take this love language test so that you can learn your love languages and figure out what your spouse needs. Okay, I'm talking a lot. So do you have anything that you want to say?
No, I think we could just get into the book. Want to do that?
Okay, what are we going to do with the book? Like,
I think that a good thing would be just to give like a little snip of what
Do you have your phone
each love language
on
is.
you?
I do.
Or I have my iPad. I want to so yeah, go ahead, talk to well, okay. I want to show you guys something real quick. But in the meantime, I want to talk about, did you ever feel unloved by me? This is, when I tell you this is raw, y'all, this is some raw. I don't know what his answer is going to be.
I don't think it was ever that I didn't feel unloved. Um, it was more that I felt like I needed more. You know, because the way that you loved me from the beginning, it's been all good, but my perception of love was all messed up when we first got married. Because sometimes, men think of love as it just being physical or it being gifts or, different things like that. But it's so much more deeper than just, those things. And I really didn't understand it until after I took the test.
Yeah. I think this will be fun. Okay. So, here is this might be cool if I can pull it up. Okay. Since we don't have that much time. Just to kind of give you a summary of the 5 love languages. Number 1, affirmation, words of affirmation.
Mm-hmm.
There's acts of service. There's receiving gifts. There's quality time, and there's physical touch.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to use coffee as a way to explain this whole thing. Okay, so if your love language is words of affirmation, then this would make sense to you.
Your coffee is delicious.
So if your wife or someone made you coffee and they said, "Oh my gosh, your coffee is delicious," you
so
would
good.
feel loved. Like, thank you for telling me that my coffee is delicious. You gave me a compliment. Okay.
The next one is, I made you coffee.
And that's acts of service.
Acts
He
of
didn't
service.
say the name of the language. He should have said the name of the language first. But acts of service, if your love language is acts of service, then somebody coming up to you and saying, "I made you coffee," would mean so much to you.
Mm-hmm.
Because you feel loved by the acts that someone does for you, acts of service, by them doing something for you, versus just simply saying your coffee is delicious. Okay. The next one is
receiving gifts.
Okay.
And here is a coffee.
Here's your coffee.
Here's your coffee.
Here you go. Got you some coffee.
I got you some.
You would feel loved if your love language is receiving gifts. You would feel absolutely loved if somebody just gave you coffee versus saying your coffee is delicious, or versus saying I made you coffee. Just here's your coffee. I'm going to give it to you. Quality time.
You should do this one.
I'm going to do this one. Let's go get a coffee. Let's go get a coffee together. Not I made you coffee. Even that would be nice. I mean, it's still you. All of these are all of us can have all of these. We can exhibit all of these love languages, period, but on different levels. So while words of affirmation mean the world to me, quality time means more. But words of affirmation is my secondary love language. It falls right under quality time. It was kind of high up there, just not as high. And then the other ones will rank too. So just look at it as, okay, on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 was my highest, it was this, and then it was this and this and that. So it doesn't mean just because my love language is quality time, primarily, that I don't need all of the other love languages, because you do.
You do. You definitely need to, men especially, we need to reaffirm our wives and appreciate them. Even if her love language is something else, it's important that we exemplify all of these languages from time to time.
Mm-hmm. So quality time, let's go get coffee. Physical touch.
Let me hold you like a coffee.
Let me hold you like a coffee. Listen, touch me, honey, okay? Touch me. That would be your love language. If your love language is physical touch, that would mean something to you. So those are just a few different examples. These are fun. There was another one that I was actually looking for to explain, and we're going to give you this one more example with... It's the same thing. Okay.
With tacos.
With tacos. Um, okay. So let's talk about Chipotle real quick. A person whose love language is
Acts of service. So acts of service would be, would you like me to pick up Chipotle?
okay. So if you feel loved, if somebody would ask you that, then your love language could be acts of service. All right. Quality time, which is my love language. Would you like to go to Chipotle with me? Sure. Especially food. Like we can go get some food. Okay. I love food. So would you like to go to Chipotle with me? Words of affirmation.
Words of affirmation. This Chipotle is so good. Like, this is awesome.
Gifts. I bought you Chipotle. And last
is physical touch. The touch of a burrito on my lips.
Okay, so those are the 5 love languages. Again, we took the test, and when we both took the test, it was like, what? These are our love languages? My love language was quality time. His love language was
words of affirmation.
And I realized that that's why I wasn't feeling loved, because we were not spending time together. And so in this book, it really breaks down what a person without that, who doesn't have that love language, what they can do in order to develop better habits, of expressing love to the other individual. It made sense that my love language was quality time because I kept trying to show him love by spending quality time with him. I would suggest, let's do this, let's do that, and that was my way of trying to love him, is by spending time with him, doing things for him, trying to set it up like dinners and, stuff like that when he'd come home, and he'd be just tired sometimes. And I would be like, really? And then the same thing for him, like, I wasn't saying enough, and while in the beginning, I was saying more and more, you get distracted, you don't see each other, enough. And, a lot of that communication got cut down, so I can imagine, how he could have been feeling with us, unintentionally feeling, with being so busy, where we were talking every single day, almost all day, it seems, to getting married. And now you're working nights. I don't see you during the day, you sleep and then you leave. And then, it's like, how are you getting affirmed? But he was still trying to express love to me by, using words, of kindness. That was good, babe. Thanks for doing this, or whatever. And that was nice, but I did it and didn't require him to do that. Like, he didn't have to say those things, even though it's nice to hear him. I didn't feel loved just because he said, thank you. You know what I mean? Like that dinner was good. That didn't make me feel loved,
Right.
But it did make me feel appreciated, and those words do matter. They do matter, because it is my secondary love language, words of affirmation. So anything?
Yeah. So, and with that, even from my perspective, I think with, with our relationship, with our marriage, it's been a lot of learning. Like I had to learn, like, what does like I knew what quality time was. Like when you hear the word quality time, you're like, oh, just spend time together, right? But when you're in the midst of a busy life, um, requirements, different things like that, you have to really, for a person where quality time does not come natural, you have to learn what quality time is. So even for a person where words of affirmation may not be natural, you have to learn how to use affirming words. Um, so for me, with quality time, I had to learn it. And because I love my wife so much, I had to take action.
I love him too.
I had to take action on her love language to make her feel like she was being loved, which means um, I'm low key a workaholic, right? So I had to really check myself, check my schedule, um, and commit to some things. Commit to phone calls, commit to getting off work at certain times, commit to things that was going to help her feel like she
And he
was
has
being
done
loved.
an amazing job, by the way. An amazing job. He has, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it's important that, like, even as you go through this book, it sometimes it may even feel a little cliche, like these things like, oh, five love languages, okay, I get it. But if you really take it and um, really eat on that information, uh, it will really start to change the way that you see your relationship.
Because it is so easy to love a person the way you want to be loved, but it's hard to love them the way they need to be loved. You know what I mean? Like, I could spend quality time with Sean all day because I love that way, you know, but I have to be intentional about appreciating him verbally more. I mean, I do. I do. And I'm not just saying that to justify myself. I do give him words of affirmation, right? Will you
She
confirm that?
does.
I
She
think so.
does.
But I can do it more. I can do it more. I can appreciate him more. And that, even if it takes work for me to remind myself, appreciate the good stuff. Like you mentioned that you talk about the negative stuff. You need to be more intentional about talking about every little good thing too, so it all takes work in us being intentional. This, I think, we'll close with this.
Okay.
I gotta hold this up because I don't know why
I'll hold it.
So these are love languages, and so we're going to go over the love languages one more time, just really quick, and then tell you how to communicate that love language, actions that you should take with that love language, and things to avoid with a person that has that love language. Okay, that sound good?
Yep.
Okay, so let's start with words of affirmation. Sean's love language is words of affirmation. How should I communicate to him?
So the communication, how to communicate would be to encourage, to admire, appreciate, and listen actively.
Okay, so affirm. So I should be encouraging him, affirming him, appreciating him, and listening actively to him. That's how I communicate to him with his words of affirmation as being his dominant love language. Things that I can do: send an unexpected note, send a text, send cards, anything like that, to that would allow me to engage with words with him, to affirm him. Things that I should not do, that I should avoid, is not recognizing him, not appreciating him and his efforts. So if you're dealing with the person whose love language is words of affirmation, you want to encourage, affirm, appreciate, listen actively, send them notes, let them know you love them, send them a random text message, or a card. Do not lack appreciating that person. And you got to recognize them and acknowledge who they are and what they do and what they mean to you in your life. That's words of affirmation. Next.
Okay, the next one is physical touch. So if your love language is physical touch, how you communicate that would be through nonverbal use of body language and touch to show love.
I think that was your second. Was that your second one? Or
I want to say, I can't remember if it was physical touch or gifts. It was
I
one
think
of
it
the
was
two.
gifts.
It was one of the
We
two.
need to do this again,
Yeah.
because it's been 8 years, or no, we've been married for 8 years.
We have.
But it's always good to take it because your love languages can shift too. Once one love language gets satisfied, it can shift. We've heard. So we may need to do it again.
Maybe.
But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Physical touch.
Physical touch. All right. So actions you can take obviously would be hugs, kisses, and cuddling. Things to avoid would be physical neglect, just not touching or
Like, don't touch me.
pushing off like,
if you are in a marriage with somebody whose love language is physical touch and you don't like to be touched, that's going to be some work.
That's going to be a lot of work.
Because every time you touch them, you'll be like me sometimes. I'm like, okay, babe. But I do love physical touch. Don't get me wrong, I do. But, at the same time, just about myself, because I want him to touch me. I really want his hand here, rubbing my shoulders, But I do love him. And but a person whose love language is not physical touch, you could totally squash the person's whose love language is physical touch who wants to touch you. So that would be an area that you got to work on and be more receiving because their love language is physical touch.
Yeah, the last thing to avoid is abuse. And abuse is in all levels of these. Like, you can even be abusive in words of affirmation, like with your words. Like, there should be no form of abuse at any level. Mm-hmm. All right, the next one.
Receiving gifts. How to communicate with somebody whose love language is receiving gifts. Thoughtfulness. Make your spouse a priority. And you can do that by giving them thoughtful gifts and, gestures, expressing gratitude when receiving gifts. Those are ways that, actions you can take with a person whose love language is receiving gifts. And also, things to avoid: unenthusiastic receiving gifts, like being, all right, thank you. I appreciate it. Or forgetting special occasions. Oh gosh, don't you forget Valentine's Day. Okay? If you're dealing with somebody whose love language is gifts, you need to be gifting them for Valentine's Day.
Listen.
Okay, don't forget about it.
Even if your spouse's love language is not receiving gifts, do not forget a special occasion. That would be the worst.
Don't do it. Just don't do it. The next one?
All right, the next one is quality time.
This is my love language.
All right, so some things you could do to improve quality time is uninterrupted and focused conversations. One-on-one time is very important.
Yes.
Create special moments, take walks, do small things with your partner. So all of those things are very important when it comes to quality time and how to create and take steps in that direction. Things to avoid, distractions when spending time together. So, like, you have to be intentional. Like I said, putting down the cell phone, not scrolling, checking your emails, that's always been my bad habit. Babe, I'm just checking my emails. Just give me 1 minute. Like,
or we could be watching a movie together, and because he's there, he thinks it's okay to.
Oh, let me say this. No, in the beginning, when I thought quality time, I just thought like, well, if I'm just in the same space with her, like, it's time together. But the word I was missing was the quality. Right?
Of the time. The quality of the time is important.
So I really had to learn, like, okay, yes, we are in the same room, or we are doing the same thing, but how can I create that engagement with her to let her know, like, it's almost like it's just me and you.
Yeah.
And so that took some work, but we're getting there.
We're getting there. We're getting there. And every day it's work.
Yeah.
You know, we got to be intentional and we got to keep trying. That's a whole nother conversation because marriage is not easy. And whoever makes it seem like it is lying. They're lying.
They're not telling the truth.
It takes work.
It takes a lot of work.
It's doable. And you can have a happy marriage, but it just takes work.
Yeah.
And there's never a day that comes where there's no work that has to be done.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that's a whole nother conversation.
A whole nother. So another thing to avoid would be long lengths of time without that one-on-one time. I remember because I did work so much, there would be days upon days, you know, before we would be able to have any type of like real conversation just to see like, hey, how you doing? What's going on?
Like, how you really doing?
You know, like for real. You know, so that was important. All right. So next.
The last one is acts of service. How to communicate with someone whose love language is acts of service. Let me know you are wanting to let them know you are wanting to help, to lighten their load, you know, to take some things off their plate. You know, so those are ways that you can communicate, is, you know, letting them know that you're there, you know, and that you're willing to help, that you want to help. Actions to take: make them breakfast or dinner. Go out of your way to help them with chores and things like that. Things to avoid: lacking following through with things, you know, or small and large tasks, not completing them. Just keeping your word and doing what you say you're going to do, helping out and making their load a little bit easier, is the way that a person that has that love language would need to be, you know, treated. So those are the 5 love languages. We are at 31 minutes. Hopefully we can like edit it a little bit and take it down to 30. This part probably won't be in the video, or maybe it will be. I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, that's it. Anything else?
No, I think that's it. I hope you guys really enjoyed. This is something that has really helped our marriage and has really transformed our relationship. And so I'm thankful for, you know, coming across this book, but even more thankful that there's one thing that we forgot. And none of this matters if God's not first.
Amen.
If you don't put God first, you're not going to know how to prioritize your wife and your family. So I think that's really important.
And that's another conversation that we are going to talk about.
Yeah.
We are going to talk about. So stay tuned. Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day.
If you're watching this on Valentine's Day, and if you are watching it on another day, keep loving. Keep loving. It's very important in your marriage and your relationship. And I think we're done for real. All right.
Peace.